Hello, people of God. Well, we're going to be delving into one of my favorite topics, which is demonology, on today. So, thank you guys for your patience. I pray that you guys have had an amazing Sunday. Um, Kind of had it in my head that I was probably not going to come out and teach on today. I got to learn how to turn the volume down on this so that I don't hear when people are chatting. But let me Nevertheless, I pray that you guys have had an amazing Sunday. I'm going to be dealing with one of my favorite topics, which is demonology. Give me a second. Let me see if I can remove myself from the chat so it doesn't, or I can kind of silence it. I'm still trying to figure this out. I have a new computer and I have not yet figured it out yet. Let's see here. I got it. Okay, I still haven't figured it out. I turned it off, but all right. I ain't gonna worry about it. All right, so I wanted to talk about the Python spirit because this is something that the Lord placed on my heart, and this is something that is attacking America right now as we speak. So a lot of what I'm going to say can be considered controversial. So I admonish you: one, pray about it, and two, study to show yourself approved. It's not my job to prove something. My job is to bring the revelation and the facts to you. It's your job to take it and to break it up, take it before the Lord or what have you. Because you do get a lot of people that come on, they be like, prove it, prove it, prove it. And it's like, yeah, no, if you want revelation, you're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to do the work. We can give it to you. So again, this is one of the spirits that is attacking America at large. I did a teaching on my Facebook page. I talked about the Python spirit. I talked about a dream that I had back in 2015, and I'm going to likely share it on here as well. But before we dive into that, do me a favor, like and share. And I believe the dream that I had has something to do with what's happening in America right now. But it was a dream that I had back in 2015. It was one of the most significant dreams. It was something that I remember because it was so very detailed. I remember immediately after that dream, I got up, I shared it to Facebook, and I've shared it on many platforms ever since then. Now that we're dealing with COVID-19, which I'll explain as we get into it, now that we're dealing with COVID-19, I think that dream has something to do with that. Potentially, that's not something I can necessarily prove, but it is something that I believe, and it's something again that you should pray about. Facebook, do me a favor, make sure you guys are engaging. I will disconnect y'all. I love y'all, but make sure y'all are engaging over there. Make sure y'all are liking, you're sharing. YouTube, like and share. I don't want to have. I don't like to have a lot of spectators. Spectators kind of make me uncomfortable because they just kind of ghost watch and they try not to share because they really don't like you. It's a Python spirit within itself. They try not to get involved because they a lot of times they're following people that they know don't like you. Oh, I'll call it out. And they don't want the folks that they know or the people they're trying to impress who don't like you to know that they follow you. They don't want them to know, so they just kind of ghost watch. Y'all get delivered from that. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get ready to get started. I'm going to wait. Okay, I was going to say I'm going to wait till we have 100 people on here, but we have over 100 people on here right now. So before we get started, I think I'm going to go start with Genesis 3:1-7, and then I'm going to give you the dream that I had back in 2015. And I'm going to share with you what I believe that dream meant. And like I said, you pray about it, and you take your own revelation from it. So Genesis 3:1-7. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. Neither shall ye, where was I? Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes should be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for fruit, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them were both open, and they knew that they were naked. Their eyes were opening. Third eye awakening. Y'all ready? Third eye awakening. Their eyes were open. This is where we get a lot of witchcraft today. You got a lot of people that are trying to open your eyes on today. These conscious movements, these woke movements, and the eyes of them were open, and the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig trees together and made themselves aprons. Made themselves aprons. So we know that this serpent, this was Satan that got inside the body of a snake. Let me submit to you that this snake was Python. Let me submit to you that this snake was Python. He was cast onto his belly as a punishment. Um, and God placed enmity between him, or the kingdom of darkness, and mankind as a result of that, meaning there will be no friendship. Nevertheless, you have a lot of people who get into witchcraft these days, and for whatever reason, they believe that they're making friends with the spirit realm. They believe that they're making friends with demons, and what is that they call the guides that they use, spiritual guides. They think that these are friends, but these are fallen spirits. These are fallen spirits. So first thing you have to understand was that Satan told Eve that basically she did not need God. That's the goal of witchcraft. She did not need God. Girl, please, you can be your own God. You can be your own God. You don't need him. All you have to do what he told you not to do. Disobey him. Do what he told you not to do, and you will be your own God, and your eyes will be open. And guess what happened when she bit into that fruit? Her eyes were open. Her eyes were open. And you know what? She needed God. That was a lie. But her eyes were truly open. There were some things that God did not want them to be aware of, because it's almost like mafia. What a lot of mafia bosses did was they would marry, and I hate to say this, but they would marry these beautiful bimboish type women, women who just really got caught up in their own reflections and stuff. And what they would do is they would intentionally keep the woman in the dark, intentionally keep her in the dark as to what they were doing. I mean, the women knew they were into illegal activity or what have you, but they didn't care, because they were just excited that their husbands or their boyfriends were buying them all this expensive stuff. But they intentionally kept them in the dark. One of the reasons that they did that is because those women being in the dark made it difficult, almost impossible, for the women to be prosecuted. That was their way of protecting the woman. It made it difficult, almost impossible, for the woman to be prosecuted because she just didn't know. But anyhow, let's just go ahead and move on. So let me talk about this dream. Let me talk about this dream that I had. Do me a favor, like and share. Like and share. Let me talk about this dream that I had back in 2015. And like I said, it was one of the more significant dreams, because we have dreams. But it was one of those dreams that was very detailed. Not only was it very detailed, but I woke up from that dream. Yeah, it was one of those dreams I kind of flew up from. So back in 2015, I've shared it on this platform before. Many of you are new. Welcome to my channel. But I shared it on this platform before, but I'm going to share it again. Back in 2015, I had a dream that and I'm trying to remember the order of the dream, but I remember we were in this building. It was me and a group of people, and we were on this main floor, and there was this big snake. Now, I remember somehow, I have a faint memory of, I don't know if I caught the snake and cut his head off. It was this big, giant talking snake that was after us. I don't know if I did it. I'm pretty sure that's what I did in the dream. I don't know. But nevertheless, cutting off the snake's head did not kill the snake. Cutting off the snake's head did not kill the snake. I think that we thought we had got rid of it. And that was that. So in the dream, I believe what happened was, and I try to remember it, what have you, but in the dream, what happened was the snake got after everybody. And we were all in this room, all unified, all these people. We just standing in this room. I remember there was a piano in the room, the whole nine. We were all unified. Thank you, Sister Danielle. God bless you, sis. And all of a sudden, the snake popped out or something like that, and everybody went on the run. And I was mad in the dream because I was like, why are we running? That was my thing. It's like, it's a lot of us is one of it. It's one of it. Why are we running? Why won't we just come together and overcome this thing? Nevertheless, it was every man for himself. So everybody went on the run. And I remember there were elevators in the building. And I remember people were running upstairs and downstairs. I ran with some other people and I got in the elevator. But me, it was two other people in that elevator with me. And my goal for getting in the elevator was really, I was just trying to talk people into, hey, let's just go ahead and fight this snake while we're running from this snake. What have you, got in the elevator and we went to the top floor, like the highest floor that we could go to. I remember in the dream. We went into this room, we hid. After everything died down, I'm in the room kind of talking to them and I'm telling them, like, hey, I don't understand why we're running. We all need to meet back up. We can overcome this thing together, all that. We end up coming out the room, and I don't know what happened to the other guy, but I remember one of the guys that was walking with us. We were passing by this room. It was a room to the right, and the door was slightly ajar. And in the room, I saw one of my former bosses from Walmart. The door was slightly open, and I could see him behind his desk working. And I was thinking to myself, okay, he back there, he just as calm or what have you. But I knew in the dream, like we weren't allowed in that room. Like whatever it was that was after us could not get to him or what have you. He was working. So the guy that was next to me, I said to him, he was like, no, I'm gonna go talk to him. And I was like, hey, you can't just go in that room. We can't just barge up in there. He was like, no, I'm gonna go talk to him. I'm gonna go talk to him. I said, we can't just barge up in there. Nevertheless, he didn't listen and he walked into the room. And I remember just seeing him go in the room because I remember the manager's head down and he was just working. And I just remember seeing his head come up, looking as the guy came in the room and the guy closed the door. I waited outside and then the guy came out of the room with his head down. I said, you got fired, didn't you? He said, yeah. So that was it. He left or what have you. He got fired. That was it. He was cut out of the game. I got in the elevator and the other guy was probably still with me. I don't remember. But we went back to the main floor, which is the first floor, and people started coming back together in there. They started gathering. And I remember I started talking to the people. I said, hey, y'all, we can overcome this thing. I don't know why we running from this thing. And I'm up in there and I'm talking and people are getting encouraged. People are seeing me, like, okay, yeah, we got this. And all of a sudden, there was a closet in that room. All of a sudden, the closet door popped open and the snake's head was in there. The snake's head was in there. Like I said, it had been severed from his body, but the snake's head was in there and it was at the top of the closet. And it started talking. It dropped down to the floor. The people started panicking. And it said, I don't know why y'all are running. You can't get away from me. You know I'm going to get you. But if you just submit to me now, I'll have mercy on you. I'll have mercy on you. And I started yelling at the people like, no, he's alive, what have you. He opened his mouth and there was this light that came out of his mouth. He opened his mouth and there was this light that came out of his mouth. And people began by droves to go into the mouth of the snake. And I was screaming at the people. And I watched one by one as people walked into the mouth of the snake. And I was getting fired up mad. By the time it was over with, I won't say I was the only one left. I will say that I don't remember anybody else being in the room. Now, I don't think that was a representation of me, so don't misunderstand it. But what I ended up doing, I got so frustrated after I saw that and a snake came out the closet or I snatched it out of the closet, I don't know. But I sat on the snake's head. I sat on his head. I was so mad and I got an unconventional weapon. I got a screwdriver and I began to peel the snake's eyes. I started stabbing it in the eyes with a screwdriver. And it was like this film on the snake eyes and I was peeling it. And I remember in the dream, the snake was begging for mercy. It was begging for mercy. And that's how the dream ended. Now, the reason I believe that has something to do with today, and like I said, I'm not preaching this as doctrine, so don't run with this. I say pray about it. I believe that what we're dealing with COVID-19 is Python. It's Python. That snake in the dream was a Python spirit. And what Python did was it released false light from his mouth. It told the people, if you come, I won't hurt you. I'll have mercy on you. It overwhelmed the people. It utilized the spirit of fear to control the people. It divided the church. We were all running, going on that building. We were going on different levels. Some people went to the lowest places. Some people went to the high. Me and two other people, we went to the highest place. Now, when it comes to that guy that walked into the manager's office, understand that the manager represented God. The manager represented God. He approached God in the wrong way. And I was telling him, like, we can't go up in there. We can't go up in there. Nevertheless, because like I said, he was a manager. So he represented somebody of authority. But you can't go up in there. He went up in there. He got fired. But then when he came out, got fired, he just left the building. It's like he got cut out of it. He wasn't even in the fight anymore. And we see this with a lot of prophets and prophetic people right now, is that a lot of people get cut out because they approach God the wrong way. What is the wrong way to approach God? Witchcraft. You got Christian witches out here. You got people who are trying all types of things. And there are some people who try to control God. Some people who try to demand to get what they want from God by, oh, I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But that's their attempt to control God. Now, I believe that COVID-19 is like I said, don't take this and run and go to your doctor and tell your doctor, well, I don't need treatment for COVID-19. I'm going to get deliverance. If you need medicine, get your medicine. What I am saying is this. I believe that it's COVID-19 because in the year 2020, two things happened. Now, I need you to hear me when I say that two things happened that God brought to my attention. One, COVID-19. What does COVID-19 do? It does the very same thing that Python does. It cuts off the breath. It cuts off the breath. That's what Python does. A Python snake wraps itself around its prey, and we'll get into that. But a Python snake wraps itself around its prey, and it cuts off their breath. It stops them from breathing. Thank you, Brother Andre. God bless you. It stops them from breathing. And then two, we had the incident with George Floyd. What did the man do? He kneeled on his chest. It created a upright. He stopped George Floyd from breathing. He stopped him from breathing. Those are the two incidents that represented Python back in 2020. But we are so divided as a church that we can't see what's happening right now. We don't understand what's happening right now because everybody's trying to figure out what to do. It's every man for himself. Everybody trying to figure out, how do we overcome COVID-19? What do we do? Do we go out here? Should I get vaccinated? Should I not get vaccinated? Now you got Christians attacking each other about whether or not to get vaccinated or not. That's your business. If you want to get vaccinated, get it. If you don't want to get it, don't get it. But I will say this, if you decide not to get vaccinated, don't be one of those people that's an anti-masker all the same, because that's very selfish. But that is, in my opinion, I believe that COVID-19 is the Python spirit walking or moving in the earth. So some of the things I'm going to show you, I think that I'll prove that as I go along. But I want you to come to understand more about the Python spirit. And my goal, I'm going to try to keep this message about an hour, no more than an hour and 30 minutes. And I may have to do 2 or 3 parts of this message so that I don't get the complaints from my people with the short attention spans who don't like, who. Okay. All right. I just never understood the whole thing. Why don't you just pause the video and come back and watch it instead of telling me to cut it? I've never understood that argument. All right. So I'm going to give you some facts about Python snakes. I'm going to give you 4 facts. And then we'll move on into the message. Number 1, they ambush their prey. They ambush their prey. So when you're dealing with the Python spirit, it is a spirit of ambush. It looks for an opportunity. So if you look at where they're found, Africa, Sub-Sahara, places like that in the wilderness. Thank you, Sister Brandy. What the Python spirit does is it looks for an opportunity. And like typically you can be frustrated. Maybe you say something you shouldn't say and you come into agreement with somebody, you do something, they look for an opportunity. But they're not predators that pursue their prey. The python just lies in wait. And so now what the enemy does is he uses seducing spirits to bring you within the realm of Python. He uses seducing spirits. It could be the spirit of seduction, and we'll talk about that. It can be an opportunity that God told you not to walk into, but it's to get you outside the will of God, get you into the wilderness where Python is waiting for you. So they are ambush predators. Number two, pythons first bite their prey to get a grip on them before coiling themselves around them. Python has to use the technology of coiling itself around the person. It has to overwhelm. So when you talk about the python snake in the natural, the python snake, what it does is it has these teeth that go backwards. They're large teeth that go backwards. And so what it does is it bites down. Their teeth allow them to get a good grip on their prey. And after they get a good grip on their prey, the python is not venomous. So what it does is it wraps his body around the prey. It wraps his body around the prey. And then number three, what it does is pythons suffocate their prey. The prey often go under cardiac arrest. What it does is it will coil itself around the prey. And then what it does is every time the prey exhales, I think, it'll tighten its grip. And it keeps doing that until the prey stops breathing. The python knows when you're dead because it can detect the heartbeat of its prey. It knows when the person is dead or when the animal is dead because it can detect the heartbeat of its prey. So their prey often go into cardiac arrest. If you think about that, spiritually speaking, the spirit of python, what it does is it overwhelms your mind. It breaks your heart. It takes you through so much until you just give up. And number four, the python's greatest enemies are birds of prey, eagles, and lions. Now they have, depending on the size, because there are 41 different types of pythons. Depending on their size, they have various prey. There are a lot of prey. They have frogs that eat them. Dogs. There are different animals that eat prey, that eat python. But larger python snakes are typically killed by eagles and other birds of prey. I find that interesting. And lions. Now, eagles, if you don't know, represent the prophetic. The prophet is the one that overcomes python, that helps us to overcome python. Many of you, and I've said this before, you are prophets or prophetic people. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but one of the reasons that python or COVID-19 is so prevalent is because many of you are not on post. You know what the enemy does with the prophet or the prophetic person? He makes you want to be normal. He overwhelms you. He makes you want to be normal. You just don't want to have to deal with all of that stuff about prophesying. You don't want to, what if I'm a false prophet? You don't want to deal with the assignment. But whenever the prophet is not on post, Python gets on post for. Whenever the prophet or the prophetic person is not on post, Python gets on post. So I'm going to read something I got from Wikipedia, and then I'm going to give you guys some characteristics of the Python spirit so you can see if it's operating in your life. So in Northwestern, this is from Wikipedia, in Northwestern Ghana, people see pythons as a savior and have taboos to prevent the snake from being harmed or eaten. Their folklore, it's a Mississippi accent. Their folklore states that this is because python once helped them flee from their enemies by transforming into a log to allow them to cross a river. It makes me think about Moses when he was going before Pharaoh. Anyhow, in Botswana, sand ritual practices surrounding pythons date back 70,000 years. In sand mythology, the python is a sacred creature that is highly respected. They believe that mankind was made by a python that moved in between hills to create stream beds. In Benin, those who practice Vodun believe that pythons symbolize strength and the spirit of Dagby, to do good in Yoruba. Annually, people sacrifice animals and proclaim their sins to pythons that are kept inside temples. What are they doing? They're worshiping. They're worshiping the enemy. Okay, that's not where I wanted to go. What was that? What was that? That's where I know where I want to go. Give me a second, guys. Give me a second. Let's find that. I had it pulled up. I tried to put my notes, and I'm having to read my notes from my phone. I tried to put my notes in Open Office, but my computer It's not working well with Open Office, but I got a computer upstairs, another computer now, so I'll be going live from my prayer closet from in a very near future, guys. Give me a second. So I shared that story with you where these people are worshiping Python. That means that Python is a principality over those regions. I want to read to you where we see Python operating as a principality over another region, and this is the region of Philippi. This is the region of Philippi. Give me a second. Let's find that story. It's in Acts 16. I think it's Acts 16:16. And okay, Acts 16:16. And it came to pass as we went to prayer. Now, this is Apostle Paul speaking. It came to pass as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination. Now, just so you know, the word divination in Greek mythology is Puthon, from where we get the word Python. And it came to pass as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination met us, which bought her masters much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us and cried, saying, these men are the servants of the Most High God, which show us the way of salvation. Thank you, Sister Natasha. God bless you. Which show us the way of salvation. And this did she many days. They tolerated her for a while. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the Spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. He took her through deliverance. And he came out the same hour. Who came out? Python, spirit of divination. And when her masters saw the hope of their gain was gone, they were only concerned about money. They didn't care about who getting bound, what have you. When the masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paul and Silas and drew them into the marketplace unto the rulers and brought them to the magistrates, saying, these men, being Jews, do exceedingly trouble our city and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. Stop right there. What are they doing? They're using the spirit of accusation, which is a Python trait. They're using the spirit of accusation. Now, they following with their slave girl, but when they realized their hope of gain was gone, they all of a sudden use accusation. And the multitude rose up against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes and commanded to beat them. I have to stop when I say the spirit of accusation. It also goes with the spirit of suspicion. This is what the Lord is reminding me. It goes with the spirit of suspicion. So people who have the spirit of suspicion typically come up with their own analogies and stuff like that. That's why they can't be trusted, because they see things from a wrong perspective. They don't test the spirit that's talking to them. Consequently, they end up using accusation to come up against the church. So, and the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes and commanded to beat them. And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely, who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in the stocks. So this is one of the things about the Python spirit. With this particular girl, notice that she was following. She had a spirit of divination. She was speaking the truth about them. She was speaking the truth about them. She said, these men show us the way to God. These men. What does that tell us? In witchcraft, you can get some measure of truth. In witchcraft, you can get some measure of revelation. But what makes it witchcraft, or when it gets into the area of sorcery and soothsaying, it's attempting to prophesy or to tap into the spirit realm without the spirit of God. It's attempting to prophesy or tap into the spirit realm without the spirit of God. You need the spirit of God to lead you into the realm of the spirit, because there are dark spirits that disguise themselves as angels of light in the spirit realm that will tell you, hey, I'm God, and they will lie to you. Not only will they lie to you, they'll get you to deceive other people, to seduce other people outside the will of God, going back into the wilderness to get outside the will of God, where Python will begin to overwhelm them as well. So I want to give you some characteristics of the Python spirit, because it's a common spirit. If you guys know, I have Esther Prep University, and in Esther Prep, we have quarterly deliverance. And I think it was our very first deliverance or our second deliverance. I think it was our first deliverance. After talking to the women, I realized that the Python spirit was moving. I mean, it was overwhelming. Like the majority of what they were going to need deliverance from was Python. And so during that deliverance, that was one of the spirits that I focused on was Python. But it was surprising to me because what that taught me is how prevalent the Python spirit is, because we underestimate this spirit. We're paying attention to Jezebel, which Jezebel is a principality over this nation. We're paying attention to a lot of spirits, but Python it's a snake. It's slithering. It's getting by, and a lot of times we're not paying attention. So I'm going to give you some characteristics of the Python spirit, and you will see whether or not you happen to be dealing with Python right now. Number one, isolation. Isolation. Now, don't get me wrong. God oftentimes will strategically take you into isolation so that he can spend time with you. He can deliver you from certain people, certain mindsets, certain belief systems. Sometimes God will take you into isolation. But when you take yourself into isolation out of fear or because you just don't want to deal with people, sometimes in many cases, that's going to be Python. Number two, a sense of overwhelm. A sense of overwhelm. So you feel overwhelmed. It's like life is, think about the python snake. What it does is it overwhelms its prey. So it wraps itself around the prey. When it first wraps itself around the prey is fighting. It still has its energy. It still got life in it. And it's kicking and all that. Python lets it tire itself out. And every time it exhales, Python wraps itself around it a little bit deeper. And it keeps on until the prey is overwhelmed and the prey just stop fighting. The prey is overwhelmed and the prey will start fighting. That's why if you ever come across a python snake killing its prey, many times what you'll see is that the prey may be still laying there and breathing, but it's given up. It's resolved itself to death. And that's what happens when you're under a python attack, is that many times the attack can become so great. It can become so targeted and strategic and overwhelming that you just give up. Thank you, Sister Alexandra. God bless you. That you just give up. And you just get to the point where you're just like, you know what? I really don't care anymore. I really don't this and I don't that. Let me go. Let's move to number three. Inability to focus. Inability to focus. You have this thing where it's difficult for you to stay focused. Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of us, I know my attention span is kind of like all over the place at times. I be working on this and then I want to get over here and I want to get over here. But if you find yourself, especially in prayer and stuff like that, it's hard for you to stay focused. You're probably dealing with a python attack. Number four, fear of relationships. Fear of relationships. When you're dealing with a python attack, you're going to probably not want to have too many relationships with people because, one, you're going to probably deal with the spirit of sabotage. You're going to destroy every relationship you get in. You're afraid of people, which is what drives you into isolation in the first place. Number five. This was important. Number five, I want y'all to pay attention. You speak prophetic words that do not come to pass. You speak prophetic words that do not come to pass. The thing about the python spirit is a spirit of divination. And there are a lot of Christians who want to prophesy, but they don't want to have their prophecies checked. They want to prophesy, but they don't want to be accountable with the prophetic words. So they don't have pastors. They listen, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna say it out loud. I'm gonna say it with my chest. Don't take a prophetic word from somebody who doesn't have a pastor. Because there's nobody there to test the prophecy. The Bible says out of the mouth of two or three witnesses of things established. People, hear me when I say this. The person may genuinely believe that they're hearing from God, because Satan does disguise himself as an angel of light. They will genuinely believe that they're hearing from God, but it does not mean that they're hearing from God just because they believe that. Sometimes they're not hearing from God. They're hearing from a familiar spirit. They're hearing from a python spirit, and they'll deliver that word to you expecting you to embrace it, expecting you to accept. I'm going to give you an example. Do me a favor. Like and share this. I'm going to give you an example. And I've shared this story with you guys before. Back in 2015, I underwent one of the worst attacks on my life. It was definitely a python. I underwent one of the worst attacks on my life. I had just moved to Georgia. I was living in Conyers, Georgia. And it just seemed like everything was going wrong. I did not officially have a church home. But I had a lady that I had been talking to, and she was a pastor, and she was kind of trying to become my leader, what have you. Long story short, y'all, that was one of the hardest years of my life. My mother had just been diagnosed with cancer again. I went through a financial attack of epic proportions. I just went through so much. I was depressed. I didn't know what to do. And what the enemy was doing was, and I want you to hear me because this will help you to keep from being deceived. Facebook, y'all need to get involved. Facebook, make sure you're liking and sharing. Like, and share. YouTube, like and share. But the enemy will use the realm of the prophetic to get you ensnared by the python spirit, because your goal is to test the spirit. You are not exempt from that responsibility. You are not exempt. So that particular year, I got all these prophetic words. When I moved to Georgia, I did not have a man in mind, because I was just like, I'm excited about the fact that God's using me, or what have you. I started getting these prophetic words about the man of God coming into my life and all of this stuff. You got to test that stuff, man. I'm telling you. So what ended up happening was Python was trying to seduce me outside the will of God. That it was a familiar spirit that was trying to reattach itself to me. When an unclean spirit goes out of a man, it goes through dry places seeking rest, but finding on it says, I will go back to the place from whence I came. That spirit, and I can tell you what spirit it was that was trying to get back in me, was a spirit of adultery. It was trying to re-enter. It's a generational curse in my family. Now, that spirit was in my grandmother. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I believe, and I can't say this for a fact, I believe my grandmother was my granddaddy's side chick. I believe that. I know that my granddad was married before he met my grandmother, and he left his wife. He had children with his wife. That was unheard of back then. That was completely and absolutely unheard of. And the reason I believe that my grandmother was a side chick and she took him was that, and I don't think it was her that was doing. I think my grandmother was just young and naive. I think my granddad went after my grandmother and she just didn't know no better, what have you. But the reason I believe that is because my mother used to tell me about my grandmother. She used to run away from home when she was a teenager. So her father wasn't present in her life. They have all these, we don't know who my grandmother's father was. We have all these stories about who her father could potentially be, including the most prevalent is her father was an Indian guy, which is believable if you saw her. But we have all these theories about who her father was. So my grandmother grew up dealing with the spirit of rejection. Not only that, my grandmother was I'm just beautiful, just straight up gorgeous. So she kept running away from her home. Her mother was a single mother, raising, I don't know how many kids her mother had, but her mother was a single mother trying to raise all these kids by herself. And my grandmother kept running away from home with men. And her mother, and this is what my mother told me, her mother eventually she just couldn't do it. And one of the neighbors, which was not uncommon back in those days, came and said, hey, let me help you with your daughter. Your daughter's out of control. So the neighbor, who name was Medea, we called her Medea, she ended up getting my grandma and raising my grandmother. So my grandmother was, she was out there doing her thing. And so that's the reason why I believe that she came across my granddaddy. And I won't say that's how the spirit of adultery entered, because her mother could have potentially been married, messing with a married man. That's probably why her father wasn't present. I don't know what happened. There's another rumor that there was another person in our family that was married. But nevertheless, adultery entered in around back then, or it had been there for some time. It hit my mother. My mother, when she met my dad, was a virgin. Whenever there's a spirit in you, that thing is just looking to get activated. And so that spirit in my mother got activated through my dad cheating on her. Now, wait, let me rewind. My grandma ended up leaving my granddad for his best friend. Stop there real quick. Had to make a stop off. My grandmother ended up leaving my granddad. This is my maternal grandmother. She ended up leaving my granddad for his best friend. When my granddad got older, my granddad was 19 years older than my grandmother. This is why I said he likely groomed her. He was 19 years older. Thank you, Sister Nikki. God bless you. He was 19 years older than my grandmother. But my grandmother when my granddad got older, she left my granddad for his best friend. I remember being mad at her for that. I spent most of my childhood and a lot of my adulthood being mad because I saw my granddaddy cry. I saw my granddaddy with a broken heart or what have you. But nevertheless, my mother was a virgin when she met my dad. My dad kept cheating on my mom. My mom, endured a lot. Next thing you know, she got tired of it. Guess what my mom did? She cheated on my dad for one of his friends. So adultery came in, and my mom started cheating back. She was just like, okay, she was listening to the wrong people. So that spirit of adultery was in my bloodline. That thing was in me. But I've always been sisterly. I've never been a person that can hurt, that can hurt another woman. I had my friends, I had people surrounding me. Python, I'm gonna explain that maybe on this part or the second part. But I was surrounded by people that were immoral because I was a young woman. I was 18 years old, a young woman or what have you, out here exploring my femininity, molested, raped, broken to become everything that the enemy wanted me to become. So here it was. I'm sitting up here. I'm hanging around a bunch of immoral women because I was immoral. But the difference between me and them was, I'll just get a boyfriend and we'll see, where that's going to go. They would date other people's men. They would date other folks' husbands and stuff like that. I wasn't into that. They used to call me mama because I would sit there, even though I was the youngest one, I would sit there and try to talk some sense into them. But eventually I got curious. Eventually I decided, what's this whole thing about messing with somebody's man? And I knew that emotionally I was too broken to connect to people. So long story short, fast forward, I ended up dating, or can't even say dating, messing around with a guy just out of curiosity who had a girlfriend, a live-in girlfriend, and he had a child with his live-in girlfriend. I wasn't even interested in the dude. Honestly, I wasn't even interested in the dude. It was just a game that I played. He was somebody that came over to the house for my brother. My brother was a troubled teen, and he was somebody that was coming over to the house to help straighten my brother out. So I used to see how he looked at me, and I started playing with my femininity. I thought it was fun to put on something short and skimpy and dance around and all that. I kept messing with his mind, but it backfired. So I ended up getting into a sexual relationship with him. The enemy was trying to train me. He was trying to get me into that whole adultery thing. I ended up breaking up with him when I had a pregnancy scare. I was 18 years old. I had a pregnancy scare. I just wanted to have fun. But I had a pregnancy scare, and I got really upset because when I had the pregnancy scare, I got mad at him because he was happy. He was happy. He was like, oh, we're going to have a baby. And that ticked me off. I'm being honest. It ticked me off because then I started thinking that he had did something to the condom because he was doing stuff like he was intentionally trying to get me pregnant. And I started thinking about it. So what do you think this is going to be? You think I'm going to be your girlfriend? Sitting off on the side having your kids while you living with somebody else? Well, hey, fast forward. I ended that relationship, but that spirit was in me, but I wasn't in agreement with that spirit. So the enemy was trying to figure out, how do I activate this? How do I bring this into her life? So I ended up meeting my first husband, my ex-husband. He was going through a divorce. So I justified it. And this is for some of those of you out there who are dating a married man and he's going through a divorce. Baby girl, I'm going to tell you right now, run. I learned my lesson. It took me twice. It took me 2 times before I learned it, but I eventually learned it. I got with him while he was going through a divorce, and I justified it. I said, it's not like I took him from his wife. I didn't get involved with him. When I got involved with him, he was waiting on his divorce papers to come. So I justified the relationship, started dating him and all that. I remember his wife, even though they were going through a divorce, I remember she would be passing by the house, and I was a young girl, but she would be passing by the house. And I'm like, why don't she just move on? Or what have you? I was young and ignorant and all cocky. And so she just needs to move on with her life or what have you. That marriage ended up, it failed. He was abusive, a whole lot of crazy stuff. All right. That marriage ended. We were married 7 years. We were together 9 years. It ended after 7 years. Me dealing with abuse and him cheating and all that other stuff. It was just constant cheating. Got another girl pregnant. Whole nine. So finally, I get out of that marriage, but I ain't learned my lesson yet. I was in church, but I was a babe in Christ, and I was dealing with a generational curse. And I didn't understand generational curses back then. I didn't understand that God wanted me alone so that he could heal me, he could deliver me, he could give me a revelation of who he is. I didn't understand that. I had been taught all my life that you were nothing without a man. You need to be in a relationship. So while I was going through a divorce, catch this. While I was going through a divorce, my ex, he had moved in with the girl while we were going through a divorce that he had cheated with one of the girls, and one he had a child. He moved in with her. So well, they moved in together, what have you. While I was going through a divorce, I started saying, why he can move on, I can't move on. I know I'm Christian, but that ain't fair. So I end up talking to somebody. And at first it was just like, hey, we just friends or what have you. Stop the deception of calling somebody a friend when you know you're romantically interested in them. If they're married, do not talk to them. If they are married, do not talk to, don't do it. So I was still married when I started talking. That spirit of, what was that? Adultery. Spirit of adultery still operating. So long story short, I jump in, I start talking to this guy, and we're talking and everything seems to be going good. I'm getting really excited. He seems to be the one. God tried to warn me. I had a friend that was rebuking me the whole nine, but I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't listen because I was convinced. And I kept telling myself the same lie that believers tell themselves today. God know my heart. I ain't a bad person. You know, once we get married, we won't be fornicating or committing adultery no more. I had no idea what that meant. Long story short, got my divorce, the divorce finalized because the first husband, he didn't want to give me the divorce. Divorce finalized, and a month later, I married the next dude. Oh, I'll put this girl here on blast. A month later, I married the next dude because I was dating him while going through a divorce. Familiar spirit, familiar spirit. Married the next dude. Oh boy, all hell broke loose. As soon as we said I do, it's like God says, okay, let me take the scales off of your eyes. I'm tired of you acting like that. He said, let me take the scales off of your eyes. And I ended up going through some stuff. And that particular guy, he had family members that were into witchcraft, and he was close with those family members, like best friends close. One of them, she hated my guts. He talked to her every day. Now I'm talking because Python is a spirit of divination. It's behind witchcraft. And so he was talking to a witch every day on the phone, and she hated me because I wouldn't do what she told me to do. That was her thing. She would always say, you don't listen to what I say. And I'm like, I'm a grown woman. In my culture, I said, I don't care about that. At the end of the day, because whenever we went to visit her, she would do stuff like this because I have my personality. I can come off as being very passive, and I think I'm just kind. I'm just nice, but I'm not really passive. And I think that's the thing that happens with a lot of people is they get deceived into believing that I'm passive until they try to control me. And that was what happened with her. She would look at me whenever we went to visit her. She said, she would tell him, you go sit over there and you do this. Tiffany, get up. You coming with me. I'm going to the store. You coming with me. I said, no, I'm not. She's like, what did you say? I said, I'm not coming. I don't want to go to the store. I don't feel like going to the store. You didn't hear me. So that was that. Eventually, at the end of that marriage, she admitted, she started talking about how she had put a curse on me. And, you know, she went to a witch doctor. She did a whole lot of different things and what have you. Familiar spirit. Now, let's get into this. Let me tell you what ends up happening. Let me show you why I'm sharing this story with you. All right. I finally get out of that marriage. While I'm in that marriage, I didn't fully repent. Like I'm not playing with God no more. I'm not doing this half-tail Christian thing no more, this double-minded thing no more. I'm just like, God, I see this stuff is for real. I am your servant. I done ran up in his face. I'm studying. I'm crying because I realized I wasn't going to get out of that marriage. I had to die my way out. I had to die. You don't get out of situations with people. You got to die your way out. Otherwise, you're going to keep dealing with that same spirit. And you die your way out through studying. So I end up studying my way out, praying my way out, fasting my way out, learning my way out. I had to go through a whole lot of stuff. That marriage ended. He literally bought witchcraft in the house. He literally bought witchcraft in the house. And that's a whole other story within itself. But yes, I have Zelle. But I don't know how to pull it up though. But That marriage ended because he literally bought witchcraft in the house, and I felt it when he came. I was like, I don't know what this is. He had went to Africa. When he came back, I was like, I don't know what this is. And I said to him, I said, I don't know what this is between me and you, but it's something. I said, can you sleep in the other room? And it's a whole other story. It's a whole story. I'm not going to get into that. So we end up going through a divorce. I obey God all the way out. I forgive him. I do what I'm supposed to do. I'm praying. He gets saved while we're going through a divorce. That's that. But don't save don't mean delivered, right? I get out of that. I make it up in my mind. I've already talked to God all throughout their divorce. All throughout their marriage. If you get me out of here, I promise I'll serve you. I'll never go back. I'll never fornicate again. Matter of fact, I won't even kiss him before marriage. I already talked to God and told God, hey, I truly repented. Truly, truly, like for real repented. Not that fake repentance that a lot of folks do. I already made all these decrees and promises to God. So I get out of that marriage. But again, when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, it goes looking for rest, but finding none, it says, what? I will go back to the place from where I came. That spirit of adultery was not done. It got cast out. I was rejected, and I repented of it, and it lost its authority. It lost its privilege. It lost its right. It lost what it called its home. Most of your deliverance does not take place when somebody's standing in front of you saying, I bind you, devil, come out. It takes place at the altar of decision. As James 4:7, submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Submit yourself to God, resist the devil. So I submitted to God. I submitted to God. I said, God, I won't do this no more. I repent. Now you got generations of the spirit of adultery. Now that thing is homeless. Now it's homeless. It's trying to figure out how we can get back in. 2015. This is where I get this prophetic word. Your husband is coming. And you're gonna meet him at the end of this. But no, you're gonna meet him this year. By the end of this year, I see him in front of you, and I see him proposing to you. And at this time, at first, I didn't have my tail on no man. I had just moved to Georgia. I was just thinking, but what that did was it turned my head because now I was no longer focusing on ministry like I should. I was like, okay. And then I get the prophetic word that he's a doctor. He's a doctor. And I'm like, oh my goodness, God, you good, God, hallelujah. He bless his name. I see him wearing a doctor's coat. All of that. Sometimes people can be good people. They can give you a prophetic word, but you better test that word. Test the spirit, but you are not exempt from that. You're not exempt from that. So I end up going through this major attack that year. Finances, I'm talking about my finances were going up. My car kept breaking down. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. She had to come down. I had to keep taking her to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, which meant I had to constantly keep putting my car in the shop to try to get it fixed. Oh, hell was breaking loose in my life, Lord. And I didn't know what to do. The enemy was setting me up. I'm trying to show you how strategic he is. And we'll get back into the pointers, but he was setting me up because what he was trying to do was he was trying to get me to the place where I would accept, because he knew I had already repented. I wasn't going back. He needed to get me in a hard situation. So next thing you know, at the end of that year, I'm frustrated. I'm mad because, they said the man of God was going to be there. He's going to be in proposed by that time. And this dude, and I know it's like October. I'm not going to marry somebody within a couple of months of meeting them, and I'm just like, so the prophetic word is not coming to pass. And I was dealing with a major financial attack. Come November, I get an inbox message from the ex. Remember I told y'all this guy, first time I decided to play around with adultery. It wasn't adultery for the most part, but it was sampling because he had a girlfriend. He wasn't married to the girl or what have you. I get an inbox message from him. So he had ended up marrying her after the fact. I'm marrying her, and he sent me this inbox message like, hey, guess what he's wearing? Guess what he's wearing? A doctor's coat. Remember I told you that was a prophetic word. He was going to be a doctor. In his profile picture, it's a necklace I wore to church today. He got this thing around his neck, like a stethoscope and stuff. And I'm just sitting there looking. And he was like, I owe you an apology. This, that. I looked at the message. I said, God, look at here. Look at this prophetic word coming to pass. It wasn't, no, that was not from God. It's not from God. I'm sitting there. I'm like, so he sent me his number. I call him. I'm all excited. And I'm like, and I remember this dude used to be crazy about me. Like I said, I broke it off with him because I realized that he wanted to try to get me pregnant, and that made me mad. So get on the phone with him. I started talking to him. Familiar spirit. Familiar spirit. How did I test it? Just let it talk. Let it talk. Get on the phone with the dude, and he starts talking, and he's like, I never got over you. It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years by then. 20. For real, 20. I'm not exaggerating. He's like, I never got over you. I've always thought about you all these years. This, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no. I wasn't a good person. So if you were thinking about me, you were not thinking about something good. Long story short, he said something, and that let me know that was that familiar spirit. Like and share. He said, "Do me a favor, guys. Like and share. Let's have a like and share break. Like and share. Like and share. I know y'all caught up in it, but he said to me, he said, my divorce should be final any day now." Y'all hear that? My divorce should be final any day now. I was like, wait, what? I thought you said you was divorced. I thought you he said my divorce should be fine. He was like, no, yeah, I married the girl, and we did. And he started talking, and I said, oh, bro, I don't do married men. He was like, no, no. So you remember the first time that I got married, I met this guy while he was going through a divorce, and I justified it. The second time I was going through a divorce, when I met the second guy, oh, that spirit was coming back. The Bible talks about it comes back. I'm telling you, as a living witness, it does try to come back. It does try to come back. So it used Python. It overwhelmed me in its financial attack, which is one of the characteristics we'll talk about. But it overwhelmed me in its attack to get me outside the will of God, to get me desperate, because here it was. I was under a financial attack, and bro man was probably making about 6 figures. Y'all ain't ready for that kind of teaching. Oh, he was looking like a snack at that moment. You remember, oh, he used to be crazy about you. And he telling you he never got over that. Your financial attack would be over. This dude would straight up pay all of your bills. It was a setup from hell. The enemy hijacked the prophetic to get to me. The enemy hijacked the prophetic. He used Python to overwhelm me. But remember, I said that God, the way that Python is killed is through the prophet. The prophet is the most powerful weapon against Python. What ended up happening, I went to this church. Lady, she was trying to be my pastor, what have you, but she was telling me about this church in Georgia where you can get prophetic words. Every Friday night they'll give you a prophetic word. You just got to sign up for what have you. And you can find this in my book of boundaries. You can find it on Amazon. So she was talking about that, and I was under such a major attack. Listen, I was just like, I need something. I was willing to go back to Mississippi. And if you know me, you know that if I'm willing to go back to Mississippi, that means I'm probably suicidal. Because at that stage in my life, the attack was so bad. Now, I passed the test with this guy. I rejected him. I was like, oh, bro, I don't do, and I listened to him go through all this. You the one, I'm telling you, I'm the one for you. And, and all that, and, all this stuff. He didn't even believe in God. Like, he's like, I believe in the man of steel. I'm like, you're not my husband. You're not my husband. I recognize that was a familiar spirit that was trying to re-enter my life. But we end up, the night we were supposed to go to this church, she ends up being late. Because she was supposed to pick me and my mom up to take us. We've also been going up there. So she ends up being late. She shows up late. I'm a little frustrated because the date of the event. But the night before, I spent time, I'm talking about in prayer. And I was like, God, I can't do this no more. I don't know what to do. This is too much. I need a word from you. I'm going to this thing tomorrow. I need a word from you, God, because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Remember, I said the prophet is the enemy against the prophetic. Not the prophet. against the Python spirit, not the prophetic. So I end up, she's late. So we missed the whole thing where you can go into a room with the prophets and they prophesy. We missed that in its entirety. We get there late. We end up sitting in the middle. But they come and move us to the front. They like, hey, it's four of us. They come move us to the front row, which, was amazing within itself. So I'm sitting there. I'm figuring I missed it, but it is what it is. But I didn't know they had this one event where they would release prophets onto the floor. And if the prophet had a word for you, they would come over to you. And when they said that they were going to do that, they started making that announcement. They had four women that were standing behind the announcer. And I knew right then and there, you get a prophetic word. Because when I tell you I was overwhelmed under attack, while the lady was making that announcement, one of the girls, I remember, was a Black girl. She looked down at me, and the lady was announcing how they're going to release the prophets on the floor, and she stood there, and she just kept staring. And I smiled. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a word tonight. I'm getting a word tonight. So finally, when they released them onto the floor, they had one mic. And then, of course, this is before COVID. But they had one mic. So they go out onto the floor. And what would happen is one person would have a prophetic word. They'd go to whoever they got a prophetic word for. The other prophets would release a word over them if they had a word. And then they give the mic to another prophet and they would go. And so when it was her turn, when they finally handed the mic to her, she made her way back to the front. I saw her coming. I was like, whoo! So she came up there, me, and she can't. And I didn't understand prophetic protocol at the time. She said, could you stand, please? I said, okay. So I stood to my feet. She was like, what's your name? I said, Tiffany. She said, Tiffany, can you lift your hands? And I lifted my hands, and she started telling me about an attack that I had been on. She said, I see all these darts flying at your way. The enemy has been attacking you. And basically, I remember her telling me that you got people in your life that don't mean you no good. And she said, God's about to clean your life. God's about to remove. And what I didn't realize, it was just basically everybody I was sitting next to, except for my mother. God did an enema on my life. God did an enema on, and I decided I ain't gonna fight. I'm just gonna let God do what He want to do. Python, and I want y'all to hear me when I say this. Python sometimes can be in the people surrounding you. It doesn't have to be in you. It's just overwhelming you by surrounding you with the wrong people. Remember, it's a constricting spirit. Did y'all get that? It's a constricting spirit. And I didn't do nothing to help God out. When I got that word, I just sat back. I didn't do nothing. I kept everything the same, and I just let people begin to fall out of my life. I watched it go left and right. I just watched people begin to fall out of my life. That attack ended. I needed the prophetic. I needed the prophetic. The enemy wants to get you surrounded. Prophets, Python is especially after you. You got to get yourself around other prophets and other prophetic people. You can't be out here trying to prophesy to folks without being able to get that. First, you need to be trained in a prophetic. Secondly, you need to have your words tested. Prophets can be some of the most prideful people because you don't want your words tested. I know God, and everything He always share me, it always come to pass. And when you're dealing with a prideful prophet, you can't really help them. Python got them. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. A prideful prophet is Python's favorite toy. All right. Fear relationships, you speak prophetic words that don't come to pass. Number 6, you flatter others to get ahead. You flatter others to get ahead. You can be dealing with, thank you, Brother Andre, God bless you. You can be dealing with this desire to go ahead in life, to be promoted or what have you. So you strategically try to place yourself around powerful people. You strategically try to place yourself around people that you feel like it's going to help you with your career, your ministry, and stuff like that. And then you use a token of flattery in your attempt to get ahead. Number 7, you want to be the center of attention. It's self-explanatory. I'll move on. Number 8, you deal with cycles of defeat. You deal with cycles of defeat. You're always sitting up there. It just seems like you try to get a job and then everything just keeps falling. You look around and it looks like everybody around you seems to be prospering or they seem to be moving forward, but you seem to be stuck. But those are cycles of defeat. Number 8, poverty and financial loss. Poverty. Python will constrict it will constrict your finances. It will constrict your finances, and it does that by bringing you into, and that's one of the pointers, fear-based procrastination. It gets you to procrastinate. And can I say something? God may have given you a book or an assignment to do. Procrastination is just entitlement. It's just entitlement. You think it's going to be there because it's all about you. You think that book going to be there for whenever you're ready to write it. You think no. And so that's what Python does. Let me go ahead and find where I was. Poverty. Poverty is a mindset. That means Python strategically keeps revelation out of your life, wisdom out of your life, so that he can get you into poverty. Number 10, health problems. Constant health problems. Constant health problems. I even read somewhere that thyroid problems are a sign of Python. Number 11, which is really important, inability to pray. It's just like no matter how much you try, you can't pray. No matter what you do, you can't really pray. You just be too tired to pray. Inability to pray. Inability to pray. Number 12, inability to worship. One of the ways, if you're in a worship service, or even me, if I'm at church, if I know I'm dealing with Python. If I see somebody in the crowd trying to raise their hands and worship, but they can't. If I see them trying to worship God, but they can't, I know they're probably dealing with Python. And sometimes you'll see people, trying to hold their arm up or their hands shaking as they try to bring them up or what have you. That's Python. So whenever you see that, Python is trying to constrict their prayer life. And thankfully, when it goes to manifest, and it's probably ready to be cast out. Inability to pray, inability to worship. Number 13. Thank you, Sister Chelsea. God bless you. Inability to remain focused while praying. While you're trying to pray, your mind is all over the place. When you're trying to pray, your mind is all over the place. You keep thinking about this and you keep thinking about that. I remember when I went through a Python attack in 2018. It was a major attack, and something shifted where when I would go into my prayer room, I literally kept falling asleep. Literally. Every time I got on my face to pray to God, I just fell asleep. I fell asleep. And I knew it was an attack. I was like, this is not normal. I don't normally do this. But yeah. Number 14, which is fear-based procrastination. Procrastination is demonic within itself. It's a sign of entitlement. But then sometimes some procrastination is fear-based. Fear-based procrastination. Number 15, hopelessness. You didn't just gave up. You just don't think that nothing good can happen for you, because Python it's a coiling spirit. It's gonna keep on tightening its grip around you. It's gonna tell you, don't nobody care about you. Don't nobody love you. You might as well give up. You might as well stop fighting. Girl, don't nobody care. God is mad at you. God ain't listening to you. Don't you know you still a sinner? You know you this and you that. So hopelessness. Number 16, y'all ready? Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is typically a sign of a Python attack. When you start feeling like you're an imposter because that spirit is speaking to you. Number 17, restlessness. You have trouble sleeping. You have trouble sleeping. Restlessness. Number 18, depression. That overwhelming bouts of depression. Like you just can't stop being depressed. Every time you look around, you just sad, depressed, and you just feel like you're ready to give up. Depression is typically pressure. So that's Python wrapping himself around you. And the last one I wrote down was number 19, suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts. But remember, when Python wraps itself around an animal, the animal just kind of gives in. Now you can imagine if that animal had an ability to take itself out so it wouldn't feel the pain anymore, it would. And that's what it does. Python will overwhelm you. It will attack you until you pretty much just give up. And then when you give up, it starts to overwhelm you with suicidal thoughts. It starts to overwhelm you with suicidal thoughts. I'm going to give you guys a few more things, and then I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to come back and do part 2. I'm going to come back and do part 2 and probably tomorrow or a couple of days. I don't know. But I don't want to make this a long video. So you may ask, how does Python get in? How does Python get in? 1, witchcraft. It's a spirit of divination. That's what it is. It's a spirit of divination. Witchcraft. When you get involved in sage and any demonic, occultic, new age movement, you're playing with Python. Remember what happened to Eve. See, here it is. Satan comes to tell her, basically, you don't need God. And this is what happens when you're dealing with witchcraft. You're trying to go into the spirit realm without who? God. You're trying to go into the spirit realm. You're trying to tap into the spirit realm without God. And you know what's funny is whenever people start getting into that stuff, they are so stubborn. You can't tell them the truth. You can sit there and tell them all day long, because one of the spirits, just demonology speaking, or demonology lesson, one of the spirits that's a guarding spirit that will keep you from getting free is the spirit of pride. Spirit of pride will not let you get free. Spirit of pride won't let you get free. You feel like sage is benefiting you when somebody tries to tell you, hey, you playing around in the spirit realm without the spirit of God. You're playing around with demonic spirits that are disguising themselves as God. You can't cast demons out by using smoke. You can't cast demons out like that. But you don't want to listen because you feel like, well, I felt the energy lift in the room whenever I did, do this. Could it be that demons are intelligent creatures, that whenever you play around with them, that they will step back and give you your space because they already got you in bondage? That makes sense. So if I was a demon, a whole wide demon, and I got you under control, and you sitting up here and you start feeling some type of way, and I'm putting pressure on you, and you go to doing stuff to try to lessen the pressure, you start doing stuff to lessen the pressure. Do you think I'm going to keep putting pressure on you? No, you know why? Because I don't need you to go out here and be looking for no other way to get free. Because you're going to mess around and you're going to find out that, hey, what you're doing is demonic, and somebody's going to take you through deliverance. So you know what I do? I release the pressure. Y'all got to remember, one thing about demons is that they're intelligent creatures. They are fallen angels. They're fallen angels. They know more about the spirit realm than you do. So yes, they are strategic and they will give you what you want. They can't tell you a measure of truth. Another way that Python gets in, you gotta promise to like me after this. You gotta promise to, if you have not followed this channel, make sure that you're following the channel. How does Python get in? And I didn't even do a full list. I'm gonna have to do part 2. It's gonna have to be a full list of how Python gets in. I only wrote down 3, but that's neither here nor there. Rebellion. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So sis, bro, when you know something is wrong, you just went, yeah. So you just, it's for them, because I did forget about general. Oh, good God, no, devil, you a lie. Look at my notes. Okay. Yeah, I always forgot about generational. But rebellion, brother, sister, you know sex outside of marriage is wrong. You know that. But you do it anyway. That's called rebellion. The deception that I used to live under was that once I got married, it was no longer a sin. And I had to learn that God doesn't operate that way. Has nothing to do with being married. It's a heart that God's looking at. It's the sinner's heart. So I ended up getting married, but I still had a heart of fornication. I still had a heart of adultery. And God was trying to deliver me from that heart. I was being legalistic, thinking, okay, once I get married, this sex is legal. No. But rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And that needs to be understood in the body of Christ today, because millennials, Gen Z, y'all are so in love with the world that you just don't want to let it go. And there has to be a point of sanctification that you guys are not wanting. And I'm not saying this to the entirety of that generation, but it's a large majority of that generation that does not want the fullness of God. Does not want, because it does require giving up things that you're still in love with, giving up things that you want, giving up all of, you got to be willing to let it go. This is what the definition of sacrifice. Without sacrifice, you can't get the fullness of God. And he said, if you're a friend of the world, you are an enemy of his. You're a friend of the world, so you're not going to be able to play with the world and serve him. You can't be double-minded. I don't care what you want to believe. You have to understand that your assignment is to win souls for the kingdom of God, but you can't go into rebellion to do so. You can't go into rebellion to do so. You're going to have to sanctify yourself. You're going to have to sanctify yourself. And obviously, I immediately think about some people who say, hey, but what if my gift is in the world? What if my gift is God wants me to work with the world or what have you? You got gifts in the Bible like Joseph, Esther, that were called to work with the world. But one of the things I would say to distinguish whether you're called to work with the world or if it's a case of you just not want to get sanctified is go get sanctified first. Chase God with all of your heart, mind, and strength. Get away from the world. Just get out the world. Give yourself wholly over to God. After you are fully sanctified, if he sends you off into the world, to win souls for him, you're sanctified. But don't come where you're still halfway, you're still halfway between the church and the world and you ain't got sanctified, and now you're talking about I believe I'm called to this. No, you're probably just dealing with it in an area where you're not willing to sanctify yourself. And trying to pretend to be deceived is not going to be enough, because God said, if you're lukewarm, I will renounce you, or better yet, I will spit you out of my mouth. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there are so many people who are going to bust hell wide open because they didn't want to give up the world. If you're a friend of the world, you're an enemy of his, because they didn't want to give it up. And I can tell you right now, having come out of the world really has nothing to give you. All right, number 3, and this is how Python gets in. No, number 2 was rebellion. Come out of rebellion. If you know it's wrong, don't do it. Sex is included. Number 3, false religions and false prophecies. You're going to get prophetic words. Just because you got a prophetic word doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be tested. It doesn't matter where you got that prophetic word. You need to put it on the altar. You need to pray about it. You need to make sure you're accountable with that prophetic word, and you wait it out. Don't take a prophetic word and run with it just because they said what you wanted to hear. Remember what I told y'all. 2015, I got that prophetic word, and what it did was it turned my head, and it got me all excited about, I'm about to have me a husband, all that stuff. And that was not from God. It wasn't. I got a lot of prophetic words that year coming from Christians that were not from God. Does that make them bad Christians? Thank you, Sister Cassandra. God bless you, sis. Does that make them bad Christians? No. People get words all the time. They get things that bubble up in their spirit, but they got to test it. But half the time, they're not going to test it. And they're going to just give it to you. And you better make sure you test it. Don't you just run and say, and let me say this, false religions and false prophecies. False prophecies can bubble up in you. You know how many of you that desire to be married, how many women tell me, Tiffany, I know that this man is my husband. Okay. God told me, God showed me in a dream, right? That man is my husband. And he goes to my church. And he doesn't know it yet. But God showed me, I'm just waiting on the moment for him to do this. And I'm like, sis, test the spirit. If it's God, it'll come to pass. And the woman feels like in that moment, I have to overcome you, Sister Tiffany. Because what you're doing is you're trying to bring doubt. But you know what? That's going to be a part of my testimony. That's not what they say out loud, but that's what they're thinking. That's going to be a part of my testimony. That I went to a pretty popular YouTuber, or I went to this girl, and you know what? You can't listen to anybody and everybody. Where have you? But she gives herself a false prophecy. And then what ends up happening is that woman goes to church one Sunday, sees a man comes in, he comes in with a new girl, right? He comes in, he got a girl on his arm, and she's just like, and he's like, hey, we're gonna call her Extra. Hey, Sister Extra, meet my girlfriend. But Sister Extra have it in her head. That's her husband. That's her husband. That's what we her man and God. She had dreams. She had dreams about the kids, which is a spirit husband. She had dreams. She got it in her mind. You can't tell her nothing. But he like, this is my girlfriend / fiance. Let me show you how Python starts using that woman. Divination, witchcraft. She believes in her heart that that's her husband. As soon as he walks off, she's hurt. God, I know you told me. I know you told me that's my man of God, God. I know you did. I know you did. Then the spirit of Python says to her, hey, this God, that is your husband. She a witch. Oh, I just, listen, somebody just sold their diapers. She a witch. You need to go pray against that relationship. She a Jezebel. You need to go pray against that relationship. How many women do that? 347 people on here right now, and I can guarantee you there are at least 20 women on here that have done it. I believe more, but at least 20 women on here. Python gets them to pray against the relationship, to begin to speak against the relationship. Girl, I believe she a Jezebel, she a witch, and God showed me this about her, girl. I had a dream about her. I this and I that. Brothers, this is the reason why you got to cover your wife. Even whenever you're dating her, you got to cover her, because you don't know how many women are looking at you who have a Python spirit, who believe that they are hearing from God about you, who begin to speak evil over her. And she started going through all these attacks, and she don't know why she's going through those attacks, because somebody who thinks they're a prophet is sitting back there speaking evil words over her because she walked in on your arms. I tell women all the time, listen, because I get it all the time. Tiffany, can God show you who your husband is? Yeah, he's probably not going to do that as much because he knows you're a woman and you know what you're going to. Well, I'm pretty sure. And God showed me my husband. And I'm telling you, when they start talking like that, sometimes they 3 shades of crazy. Just 3. And I'm not saying that about everybody. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying the enemy's taking them there. The enemy's taking them there. He's taking them toward the crazy area. And so false prophecy, they believe that that was from God, and you can't convince them otherwise. And anytime you try to convince them, they feel like you're just a part of the testimony that they're going to have. This woman tried to tell me that wasn't my husband. And I'm so glad, saints, that I did not listen. I'm so glad, because as it turned out, as you can see, Ebenezer sitting here right now. We turned out, and we've been married how long now, baby? A year. We've been happily married for a year now, and our marriage it's been plagued with issues. It's been plagued with it. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I've been suicidal and ready to murder him, but it's just part of the thing. No, God didn't call you to that marriage. God didn't call you to that marriage. Python did. Understand this: demons arrange marriages. Demons arrange marriages. I got to get ready to get off here. I said I'm not going past an hour and 30 minutes. Demons arrange marriages. Demons want you to marry the wrong person, because my purpose started really growing when I wasn't bound by a guy. If I'm with the right guy, he covers me and I can be as purposeful as I am. But Satan arranges marriages so you're overwhelmed, you never step into your purpose, you're frustrated, you're suicidal, you're angry, you're distracted, you're not fully covered. Demons arrange marriages all the time. They arrange relationships, they arrange marriages. And so that's what it means to have a marriage made in hell. Demons arrange marriages. So when you're going out to somebody's husband, you can bet you by golly, well, I don't care what you say. God didn't put that together. But Tiffany, his wife ain't not even saved. He loved the Lord and he's serving God and everything. And, he had to leave his wife because his wife not even saved. Well, that brings the question in, why did he get with her? Well, he wasn't really saved when he got with her. Sis, you're being deceived. Prophets and prophetic people, Python is after you. Python is after you. That's why you have to have accountability. Last one. I had 3, but Sister Takaya reminded me of another one that I forgot to write down. Generational. It may be moving through your family. It may be moving through your family. It came in because your mama had it. Your mama dealt with poverty, rejection, all these other stuff. Your daddy dealt with it, and it's just been moving through your family for generations. It's been moving through your family for generations. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back, and probably within the next couple of days, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna tell you guys how to defeat the Python spirit. Um, this is just gonna be part one, and I have to do part two only because I don't want to end up doing something extremely long and losing the viewership, and at the same time I get the crybabies in my comments. But I will be doing long videos and short videos for both audiences. But today we were just getting an understanding of the Python spirit. Now I want to just say this before I go. Python spirit is very common. It's gotten to the United States. At first, we were in God we trust. We love the Lord. We were a country all about God. What we did, we started allowing people to come over here with their false gods. And now the United States of America, people over here getting into demonic yoga, people getting into all kinds of crazy stuff because of all of these things that have been normalized. And that's how Python got over here. Amazingly enough, Python, the snake, is not in America. I mean, it's now in America, but it came in, it was bought over here. And it's the same thing. Thank you, Everyday Motivation. God bless you. It's the same thing, spiritually speaking. The Python spirit came over here through us tolerating Jezebel, us allowing people to come over here with their false gods and to raise up their false gods. And it's not even just that, because it's usually powerless until the church puts its hand on it. Whatever you bound on earth is bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth is loose in heaven. It's usually powerless until we as a church begin to partner with the demonic. Because we want to be relevant. We want the world to like us. But God said if they hated you, they're going to hate. If they hated me, they're going to hate you. So this is my admonishment to you for the prophets and prophetic people. Understand this. There's a call on your life. Don't try to impress the world. Thank you, Sister Catherine. God bless you. Don't try to impress the world. I'll be doing a long one with sis. I will. But this one I knew would be really, really long. So I decided to just cut it up into two parts. But don't try to impress the world. We need to deliver them, not impress them. We need to deliver them, not impress them. We need to be sitting here being living demonstrations of the power of God so that the world can see that God is alive. But as long as we sit up here being impressed by the world, we become powerless. And we're sitting there looking at all their shiny things and all their magic tricks and stuff where they're literally partnering with demons. This is why God says, don't envy unrighteous mammon. Mammon is a demon within itself. We don't even realize we're not just envying what they have, but to envy what they have means to envy their demons. Means to envy their demons, is to covet their demons. Python being one of them. And when Python gets into a person's life, it just begins to overwhelm them until it takes them out. It's going to suffocate you. It'll take you out. It'll take you out. But I'll be back. We'll do part two probably tomorrow. If not tomorrow, sometime this week, we'll do part two. Make a commitment to coming back out. Do me a favor. Make sure you like and share this. Let's go ahead and start eradicating Python. Another thing that we're going to have to do to get rid of Python. Remember, I shared in the beginning a dream I had. As a church, we're going to have to unite. We got to stop being divided by our opinions, by our preferences. We got to stop being divided by all these different things that we have going. And we have to learn to unite as one and understand that we're not all in the same place. You know, I had to come to understand that because I came into the church really mad when I saw that Christians were immature. Well, I didn't even realize it was immaturity at one time. I'm like, these Negroes are double-minded. Nobody wants to really serve God. And this is when I first got saved. You know, I was like, people don't really want God. I thought coming into but I had to learn that there was just levels of immaturity. There's just levels of immaturity. But make sure you like and share this. And we're gonna come up against Python. We're gonna come together as one person and we will pray down the spirit of Python. So stay tuned. Love y'all, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.